Good evening and welcome to the 2026 ASUN Executive Candidate Debate. My name is Hayden Hudson. I am a culture reporter and videographer for the Daily Nebraskan, and I will be your moderator this evening. Tonight, we will hear from the executive candidates from each ticket ahead of the elections on March 31st and April 1st. While all student government positions are up for election this spring, tonight we will hear from those running to represent UNL at the top of the ticket. Before we get to the candidates, I want to start by explaining some basic rules of the ASUN election. Student election groups, or SEGs, are formed by candidates for ASUN as a form of party, but these groups are not affiliated with the United States political party. You will not see people running as Republicans or Democrats tonight. SEGs allow students to run together on the same platform, but are not required to run for office. Presidents and internal vice presidents run on the same ticket, while the external vice president can run separately or jointly with our SEG's top executives. Let's give a hand for our executive candidates from Horizon and Nexus this evening. Thank you guys so much for being here with us. All right, now onto the fun part, the rules. The first candidate to speak was drawn randomly, and tonight we will start with Horizon. Each SEG's presidential candidate will be given time to speak, and we will alternate in the order of who answers each question first. Candidates will have 3 minutes for opening statements. After opening statements, we will begin to ask questions regarding the university. Tickets will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. Candidates are reminded that they are not required to use all 2 minutes, but will be cued to stop when I say your time has run out. Thank you. A few topics that we are covering tonight are ASUN transparency, support for students during budget cuts and leadership changes, upholding diversity, equity, and belonging initiatives, and ASUN's recent request of student fees. After each topic, tickets will be given 30 seconds for a rebuttal and 15 seconds to respond to rebuttal at my discretion. If we have leftover time, audience members will be allowed to come up and ask questions to Nexus and Horizon individually. There will be a form provided for attendees to submit their questions. Tickets will then have 3 minutes for closing remarks. Reminder that this event will be live streamed and uploaded to the Daily Nebraskan's YouTube channels and clipped for socials. All right, let's get started with opening arguments from each ticket's presidential candidate. Horizon, you're up first.
Thank you very much. I just want to say thank you to the Daily Nebraskan for getting us together and putting this on. It's always good so that the students can come out and hear, what the leadership's going to look like. Horizon as an SEG on its face is all about accountability, leadership, proven leadership across this campus. I think that I've put together a group of people that are qualified, competent, and ready to lead this university during any time, whether it be budget cuts, whether it be upholding DEI, whether it be transparency in ASUN and continuing to grow that, all the good work that we've done this year. I think it provides a great group of people. We have some fresh faces in ASUN. We have anywhere from freshmen, sophomores, juniors. We have all kinds of experience, no experience. I think we really have the top of the line candidates on our ticket.
Very much. Now we will hear from Nexus.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kyan Casperson. I'm a fourth-year sociology major here at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. First of all, I just want to say thank you, everybody, for being here. I want to thank you, our huge crowd that we have here tonight, of course. I want to thank my friends that came out to support me, all my members of my group, and to my mom and my brothers watching at home. They told me that they were going to watch the live stream, so hello to them. And I just want to say I found out about ASUN actually last year in my third year at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. So when we talk about the students at this university that don't necessarily know what ASUN is or don't know what ASUN does, I was one of those students for a lot of my time here at the university, and I'm really, really passionate about student government. I think that it has a lot of capability to do a lot of great things on campus to spark change and to be the voice for students, but it's really hard when students don't know about ASUN and don't know how to meet their representatives and don't know how to spark that change. So I'm really, really passionate about getting more students to know about ASUN, to know what they do with the great work and the great people that are made in ASUN. I just want to make sure that more people can get access to that. So as somebody who has had that experience of being that outsider to ASUN all my years at this university, I feel feel very qualified to make that change. And Nexus UNL is a small student election group of new faces to UNL, passionate students that are passionate about advocacy and leadership and accountability and all of those great things as well. And we just want to make sure that we are bringing some fresh perspectives to ASUN as well, making sure that we're making it representative and more welcoming and more accessible to all students at this university. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. All right, now we will allow the EVP and IVP candidates to introduce themselves. We'll start with Horizon. You just briefly introduce yourself.
Okay. Hi there, my name is Cassidy Bell. I'm a second-year political science and Spanish major here at the University of Nebraska. I was born here in Lincoln, and I was in FCLA as a freshman. I'm the president of Circle K UNL, which is a volunteer RSO here on campus. I'm also a member of Intelligence Community Scholars here on campus, and I am Gamma Phi Beta sorority. I'm really excited.
Hello, my name is Brett Fulton. I'm a third-year political science student here at UNL. I've grown up in Nebraska all my life, so coming to UNL was really the only choice that made sense for me and my family. And throughout my undergrad, I really try to prioritize positions that meet students where they are. So whether that's in the CAST office, helping connect students to academic support, or first-gen students to those sorts of resources. I've led voter engagement initiatives across campus and off campus as well to try to turn out youth voters to local, state, and federal elections. And I've also created organizations that have developed peer support models to support students that are facing financial, housing, and food insecurity. And so those are the sorts of perspectives that I'm looking to bring to ASUN, sort of those people that have been left out for quite a while. Thank you.
And hello, I'm Rain Orrit. I'm a junior in statistics and data analytics and computer science, and I'm mainly running to be a continued advocate against the budget cuts and the effects that it has. As a student who was affected by the budget cuts and had my program cut last semester, I'm also a member of the Cornhusker Marching Band. I'm the treasurer for OSTEM, and I'm the president of the up-and-coming Statistics Club, so we still have statistics voices here on campus.
Thank you so much. All right, let's get into our first couple questions. Our first topic right now is ASUN transparency, and our I lied. Our initial questions, we'll move now to. Each ticket will have 2 minutes to respond to each of these questions. These are just basic questions. First off, we will start with Nexus. What are your general goals as ASUN president for the 2026-2027 school year?
Yeah, thank you. So one goal that I do have, so I am employed by the Nebraska legislature. I am a legislative page. So through that position, I've gotten to see firsthand how that process works and also see firsthand how members of the public and students like me are able to get involved in that process and to become part of that decision-making process, especially when there's decisions being made that are going to affect students. So something I'm really passionate about is using that knowledge, using those connections to help students, especially when it comes to issues like the budget cuts. I do understand that those decisions that were being made, they were made by the administration, but that wasn't necessarily the root of the issue. I do understand that some of that goes back to state decisions that are made in the legislature. So I want to make sure that I help students understand how those decisions are made and how we can get student voices in those rooms to make sure that we get that perspective shared and we fight against those budget cuts any way that we can. So that's one thing I'm really passionate about. And then a second piece that also goes along with the Nebraska legislature is the student regent vote. So the student of the president of the student body, they sit on the board of regents, but they don't currently have a vote that counts towards the total vote. And last year during the ASUN elections, there was a ballot initiative that asked students, would you support ASUN advocating to make that a voting position? And 85% of the student body approved that initiative. I was one of those 85% of those students. And from an outsider's perspective, it doesn't seem like ASUN has done anything on that initiative. So as a student election group, as somebody who's trying to get into student government, I believe that it's very important that student government answers to the will of the people. This was an obvious expressed will of the people, and so I plan to answer to that. So I've already taken steps to kind of see what that process is going to look like. That's one big piece of it. I would say a third thing is going to be financial insecurity. That's something that I have struggled with, and it's been a big barrier to my success my entire life, but especially in college here. And so I just want to make sure that students have their basic needs met, making sure that there are food and housing for students, making sure that they get the resources that they need, and also making sure that if they need assistance in getting school supplies, that they have assistance for that as well. I just
Your
want
time has run out. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, same question to Horizon. What are your general goals as ASUN president for the 2026-2027 school year?
Yeah, so I think, really the goal of myself and all of Horizon is really just touching on that tangible change part. We've got a lot of people that are in ASUN right now that led the move on the mobile end card committee that's coming. They're proven leaders. They can get stuff done. Our EVP, Monterez, that could not be here right now, he's at a conference in Harvard. He also established another grant to meet students where they're at, the wellness grant, and that was it's proven leadership on his standpoint. And I think those are the kind of things that we want to continue doing. We're looking at getting that end card, the mobile end card, over the finish line, making sure that that gets done. We have been working and thinking about an AI policy, making it a transparent policy for all students to know, are your professors using it? How do they feel about it? Just baseline stuff. And it's really nice that we have a really good relationship with the faculty senate, people that have worked with them before. Those are the kind of things that can happen quick and can be a tangible change for students on campus. So it's really, for our campaign, it's all about how do we make a tangible change in every single student's lives. And I could go up and down the list of current senators on our campaign that have done so many things for students now. The way they advocated for the budget cuts this year, that was as much support as I've seen anybody give them, was ASUN giving them the have a say event and allowing students to speak their mind and delivering that to the people that needed to hear it. So it's really about tangible change and about making an effect in the everyday lives of students, that they can see that student government and their student fee dollars are going towards something that's actually benefiting them.
Thank you. All right, Nexus, you guys have 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love that you're highlighting the work that ASUN has currently done. I too have kind of kept up with that. I admire a lot of the advocacy work and the policies that have been done by ASUN. I am full-heartedly supportive of those policies and seeing them through, continuing to see those thrive on campus, absolutely. But I do think that strong initiatives and policies like that and all of the work that is being done by ASUN, it needs strong leadership. So absolutely, it needs strong leadership that's going to continue to support those policies and to continue to support the members that have already put in so much work and passion into ASUN. And so I just want to make sure that they have that strong leadership that they need.
Thank you, Horizon. You guys have 30 seconds.
Yeah, there's been a lot of floating around about, especially the student regent vote. I personally, I see a lot of issues with the vote in itself, just of the fact that, it's a statewide thing and we'd have to separate regent and student body president due to the fact that, an out-of-state student wouldn't be able to be the student regent. All those kind of things that we've had GLC members talk to actual state senators about, requiring a constitutional amendment, that kind of stuff. But I really think that our campus does need strong leadership, and I think that Horizon is the strongest leaders on campus, whether it be in student government, whether it be in all different RSOs. I think they're the strongest leaders on campus.
Thank you. Your time has run out. All right. Now for our next question. Horizon, you'll be first to answer. What specific changes do you plan to implement during your term as ASUN president?
Yeah, so one of the big changes, or one change that we would like to make on an ASUN level is this government, or this administration did a really good job with, increasing their visibility and getting themselves out there. I was part of the FCLA Appointments Board Committee. We had the most applicants ever due to the good work of people on the Horizon campaign that pushed that out there and garnered so many people and got so many people interested in that. But what I want to do is implement a social media director or a marketing director for ASUN to really put the boots on the ground and really increase the visibility more. We've made a lot of great strides this year in ASUN, but I think that if we dedicate a position to that, we can continue to be more visible to students on campus, to be better for everybody. As mentioned, visibility is one of the biggest things. I want as many students to know about ASUN and how they can get involved as possible. And so that's just one big change that I want to make, is to make sure that that stays, and make that change of adding that position to really continue the work that we've done so far this year.
Thank you. Nexus, the same question for you. What specific changes do you plan to implement during your term as ASUN president?
Yeah, so my vision behind Nexus UNL is to build a student government that is more welcoming, more accessible, and more representative of the students on this campus. So what I mean by that is, by more welcoming, making sure that student government is meeting students where they are, making sure that there's better relationships between the student advisory boards and RSOs and all of those great groups on campus, things that are not currently have a relationship on campus, like between the student advisory boards. I met with a student advisory board who the ASUN senators are supposed to meet with at least once a semester. They had no clue who their ASUN senator was and had never met them. So I think that's a really big problem. I think the student advisory boards is a relationship that should exist between students and between ASUN. So that's one thing that I want to see, is meeting students where they are. Second of all, making those ASUN Senate meetings more accessible. I think that they should be live streamed. There's been past legislation in past years that have proposed live streaming them and had proposed keeping that going in continued years. But as you can see, we're not live streaming our meetings these years. So that is one thing that I would like to see. And second, I would say online testimony. I think the ability to submit comments online if students are not able to be at Senate meetings themselves is a great opportunity to be able to share their perspectives and to share feedback on certain bills. So that is one piece of that. And then in terms of representation, just making sure that we have representation for all different groups on campus. So for example, the law school, the entire law school only has one senator to represent all of those students. And we have a senator for the dental and hygiene students, but not one for the vet students. So I think that is one piece that is lacking there. And in terms of other groups on campus, like the international students or our transfer students or student athletes, these groups on campus that have unique barriers to their success and unique experiences, I just want to make sure that each of those different groups and demographics has somebody on ASUN that can share that perspective and to make sure that their voice is heard. So I'd say that those are some of my top initiatives, and just making sure that we can make ASUN for the students and more accessible to the students.
Thank you very much. Horizon, you now have 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
Yeah, and talk a lot about visibility, especially student advisory boards. That's one thing we talked about a lot in Senate this year, and I think our IVP this year did a good job in making a couple more steps towards where we need to be. But as you said, there's a student advisory board out there that doesn't know their senators. It's a little different for me. I serve as the treasurer for the Casner Student Advisory Board. I was on the Student Advisory Board before I was a senator, so I get to be a direct link between them all the time, just because I have the benefit of being on both of them at the same time. So it's easy for me to make the connection. But I think that my IVP, Cassidy Bell, is a tremendous leader, and I think that no one would be fit better to make sure that senators are being present at those Student Advisory Board meetings like they're supposed to.
Thank you very much. All right. Nexus, you have 30 seconds.
So I think that everything that I just said about making it more accessible, more representative, more transparent, things like that are all just things that is really, really important. I think that year after year, student election groups have gotten on this stage and have pointed out the fact that students don't know what ASUN is and don't know what they do. And year after year, we get up here and we say the same thing year after year. And I think Instagram and social media director, that's great, but not all students have social media. We have got to find some other way to meet students where they are and to make sure that they can access the information that they need to understand student government and the work that they do. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, for our next question, Nexus, you'll answer first. Experience and engagement with the UNL administration is an integral part of being in student government leadership. Elaborate on how your experience qualifies you for this role.
Yeah, so I have spent my last 4 years on this campus really striving to support students and to meet faculty and staff and to build relationships with professors and students all across the campus. So first I got involved with the CAST office. So for 3 years I was a peer mentor for first generation students. So I got really, really close with all of those advisors in the CAST office. I was also a peer educator for CARE, so I learned a lot about sexual assault and relationship violence prevention and education on campus, which I'm very passionate about. I also have gotten involved with CAPS, where I've gotten involved with suicide prevention and education. So just looking at building relationships with all these student support resources that I personally have gotten to benefit from, because I would not be sitting in this seat if it were not for those support resources that have helped me along the way. So I want to make sure that every single student that comes to this university has access to those support resources. So by my own knowledge, being able to connect students to those, but through ASUN as well, I think it's a great opportunity to be able to be that liaison between administration and support resources and students and all of those different pieces and stakeholders on campus. But within administration as well, I have a good relationship with Dee Dee Anderson, Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs. I met several times with Dean TJ McDowell. I think we have great administrators on campus that are willing to meet with students and have relationships and to hear us and to meet us where we are. So to have strong leaders on campus that are willing to put in the time and effort to sit down and meet with them and to have those relationships and to use the experience that they've had on the 4 years that they've had on this campus already to better the student experience and to make change on campus for their peers.
Thank you very much. All right, Horizon, same question to you. Experience and engagement with UNL administration is an integral part of being in student government leadership. Elaborate on how your experience qualifies you for this role.
Yeah, so I've spent a lot of time on East Campus especially. You know, I very good relationship with Dean Berkey, and then now Vice Chancellor of INR, Tiffany Hang Moss. I was actually recently just tapped to be the student representative on the search committee for the Vice Chancellor of Research and Innovation. So I've had a really good opportunity there to meet with Interim Chancellor Ankerson and a lot of people in administration that kind of make the wheels turn, the administrative assistants and things that really get the work done. I think that my work on student advisory boards on East Campus and even through Senate give me all the tools I need to work well with university administration. You know, I've met with TJ McDowell, you know, a handful of times. He's a great guy, get along great with him. I think that personally, I have no problem making those relationships, and I've had to call on those relationships before for things and use those relationships to get questions answered for people that bring questions to student government or student advisory boards. So that line of communication is really open between me and different people in the administration, Chancellor's office, East Campus, City Campus, either one it be. So I think that my experiences as a student leader are definitely preparing me very well for that.
Very much. All right, just an update to you guys. In lieu of our timing, we are going to just have rebuttals at my discretion. And with that being said, we're going to move on to our 4 key issues that we see facing the UNL campus this election season. Our first topic is ASUN transparency. Now, Horizon, you will answer this first question for us. What steps will you take as president to ensure that ASUN is as transparent as possible?
Yeah, so like I said with a marketing director, I don't think that just encompasses social media. I think that means more tabling, more boothing. You know, we saw the effectiveness of tabling and boothing for FCLA, you know, that first week during all the new student enrollment events, and when students and freshmen were really out on campus, they boothed hard, and a lot of the people that were boothing are on this campaign. They know what it takes to get people to see ASUN. And like I said, we had a record number of applicants, which just, it makes me smile ear to ear because, you know, I had a great time in FCLA. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me. And beyond, you know, being a freshman too, I think that boothing and tabling, that can work everywhere and every time. If you really put the effort and the work in, you can meet the students where they're at. And beyond that, you know, hosting events, making sure that people are aware of those events, you know, whether it be through social media or whether it be using our relationship with the unions to get it posted on the screen boards, you know, whatever it may be, just really not leaving any stone unturned when it comes to how can we get to students better and how can we reach them more. I think this administration did a couple different things like that. Instagram engagement going up, you know, like, you know, not everybody has social media, but a lot of people do. And, you know, a 600% increase in engagement is nothing to scoff at over the last year. and I think that's something that we can really keep going. But no, it's something that's very important, and using those tactics that we know are proven and work and that we have seen it to be effective, and just using them more, using them in more places, I think is one of the best ways to make ASUN more transparent.
All right, for Nexus, same question. What steps will you take as president to ensure that ASUN is as transparent as possible?
Yeah, thank you. So I think transparency is incredibly, incredibly important, especially when we want to make ASUN more accessible to the students. They have to understand what's being discussed at the meetings, the bills that are being proposed. They need to know the agendas ahead of time, so that way if they're interested in coming to a public forum, they're able to do that. They're able to be informed. They're able to put their statements together, whatever it may be. All of those things are really important. And I would say that this year, as an outsider to ASUN, it almost seems like this has been the least transparent year of ASUN so far. On the ASUN website, it stipulates that there are going to be weekly Senate packets available weekly. And yet, as of last month, there were only 6 weeks of information available, only available through October 1st. Now, this for me was very confusing, as it does say that those were going to be made available weekly. And I do understand, I do commend the work that's been done on Instagram. I think that's a great way to get engagement with a lot of students, but it's not a good way to get engagement with all students. Not all students, like I said, have social media. There has to be more work being done. We have to make those weekly Senate packets available weekly, as it says in the name, weekly Senate packets. They have to be made available weekly, absolutely. I just think that's really, really important so students can understand what's going on. And the other thing too is making sure that agendas are posted ahead of time. I was told that yesterday before the Senate meeting, 3 hours in advance to the meeting, the agenda was not posted on the website. I know somebody that had interest in going to that public forum, but they weren't sure what was going to be discussed. They weren't sure what to put together, what to research. That makes it really hard for students to get engaged with student government. I really, really want to make that change and to make that information available to all students on the website as it should be, and to make sure that they can access those agendas so that way if they have interest in getting involved with ASUN and speaking at those meetings, that they have the ability to do so, because it's really important.
Thank you. Horizon, would you like to rebuttal? Okay, you have 30 seconds.
Yeah, so, obviously, I'm a senator. I get the Senate packets every week, so I don't see it from that standpoint. And I know there was a pair of people that came and brought that to our attention, and I'll be quite frank. I think a lot of senators were surprised about that too. And I couldn't tell you the answer for why it is or isn't. I don't know. That's this administration's thing. There was a turnover in the chief of staff, and maybe something happened there. But it comes down to the bottom line. Leonardo Luna Duran, proven leader on campus. I know that for a fact that as chief of staff, he will make sure that all that stuff is updated and everything is up to date. And Horizon will make a commitment to that for sure. Because I can tell you, when I heard that at Open Forum from 2 people from the outside, I was very surprised, and quite frankly, I was a little bit upset about it too. So that's definitely something that I know Leo's going to take care of, and we're going to get done.
Your time has run out. Thank you. Nexus, would you like to rebuttal?
I do appreciate the sentiment that you too are disappointed that that was not made available, but I find it a little hard to believe that not a single senator needed to access that information. Not a single senator realized that those weekly Senate packets weren't made available weekly. I feel like it should have been somebody's assigned task to make sure that those were uploaded weekly. So somebody is complacent in not making that available to students. So I just think that it's really, really important. And yes, that may have been this administration, but this administration, many of those members are running again. And so I would say that I am also dedicated to making sure that those weekly Senate packets are made available weekly.
Thank you. We will now move on to our next question. This is for Nexus. What accountability systems would you create to track and report on the effectiveness of funded programs?
So to track the effectiveness of funded programs, I think we need to discuss what sort of metrics were being used to measure those. So especially when it comes to the budget cuts, I know there were sort of qualitative and quantitative measures used, but not all of those were necessarily stipulated to the faculty, especially the department heads. So I think there needs to be an all-around campus discussion on what those metrics look like and how we're measuring the success of programs, whether that may be the success of the students, the enrollment in those programs, whether that may be the state need for the program, as was a metric used to cut programs, or the job performance, things like that. So just making sure that there is a shared plan to make sure that we're all on the same page about how we're evaluating those programs to make sure that we're not just cutting programs based on metrics that people don't understand, making sure that that is just transparent as can possibly be. I do hear that there are going to be more budget cuts. There may be more programs up on the chopping block, unfortunately. So just making sure that every student and every faculty member is aware of what's being done and those decisions that are being made and those metrics that are being used, and making sure that they are validated by statisticians. We should not have people that are coming to the Board of Regents meeting and saying, if I had a student turn this in, I would have given them an F on this. We just need to make sure that we're validating our data, that we're using good metrics, so that we're not doing irreparable harm to our programs and to our students and to our university.
Thank you. Horizon, same question to you. What accountability systems would you create to track and report on the effectiveness of funded programs?
Yeah, so I guess I'll take it a little bit of a different direction. You know, when I think about funded programs, I think about, you know, what do the students think about? Then I would think, you know, your Fund A, Fund B, CFA users, and being on committee for fee allocations twice now, they have all kinds of metrics for that stuff. It just depends, you know, what you're looking at. If you're looking at Union, they have data metrics on foot traffic. Where are students ordering food from the most? They used all those data metrics and did surveys to decide what's going to go in the Union. Those are all student funded things. Those are all things they care about. Or whether it be, you know, in Slice for UPC, they keep very accurate records of how many people attend their events. You can see those metrics, and so that's why, you know, when you recommend that increase, you have that metric to fall back on and say, hey, the students used it at an increased rate, they need the money, you know, whatever. And those are really the kind of things that if you have a good committee for fee allocations chair, you can keep people accountable. And I think our committee for fee allocations candidates are the best on campus, and I have no doubt that they will analyze the metrics that those services provide to us to make sure that we're being good stewards of the funds that the students are paying into.
Would you guys like to rebuttal?
I think I would like to rebuttal. I don't know if I took the question, if I misunderstood it a little bit differently, thinking about how programs are evaluated in terms of budget cuts, that's one thing. In terms of the program fees, to make them accountable and transparent, I know that a lot of the fees have increased this year due to wage increases or the homecoming programming being moved. So just making sure that we're very transparent about why those fees are increasing, why those changes are happening, where all those fees are going when it comes to those programs, just to make sure that students understand that whole process and how that works.
Thank you. All right. Would you guys like to rebuttal as well? Okay. We will now move on to our second topic, which is budget cuts and their relevant leadership changes. Our first question will be to Horizon. Horizon, how will you support all students throughout the process of the recent budget cuts?
Yeah, so for one, the budget cuts, it's one of those things, it's tough for everybody. Nobody wants to see it happen. We had a shortfall from our own state legislator, and that stuff predated, you know, our own ASUN administration. And I think that our government liaison committee this year has done a wonderful job making that bridge strong between their committee and the legislators, so that when it comes time to make those decisions on university funding, they have that relationship with them, that they can go and advocate for the students on that level. Furthermore, I think that if you see how a lot of our slate members that are involved in ASUN now, what they did for the students this year, you know, the Huskers Have a Say event. A lot of the people on our slate helped put that event on, and I think that is ASUN in a nutshell right there. They're putting on an event. They're allowing students to voice their opinion about an issue that is affecting many of them. And they took all those comments, they relayed them through the government liaison committee to the state senators, to the Board of Regents. But that's just the way that it shook out this year. They used metrics from the APC that they decided on for budget cuts, and it sucks. It's not fun for anybody to get your program cut or to have a merger in your program. You know, my own program, we have a merger going on too. It didn't get cut, so I mean, I'm fortunate, but we have a merger and a shakeup going on, but it's really starts with advocacy from the GLC and from myself, which I'm fully prepared to do, and then continuing to meet students where they're at, have those events out in front of the union, have them on East Campus, have them in front of all the different buildings that everybody's majors sit at, and really allow those students to voice their opinion.
Thank you. Next is same question to you. How will you support all students throughout the process of recent budget cuts?
First and foremost, I think it's going to be most important to support the students that are most affected by those program cuts. So those students that were told, if you're in this major already, we're going to support you to get your degree. We're going to support you, you can see it through. Just making sure that those students are actually being supported, that they have the resources they need to thrive. Because I've met with students in those programs who have been told that it's kind of up in the air. They're enrolling in their classes, but some of their professors are thinking about leaving. They're taking interviews elsewhere. They don't know if they're going to have a professor for their class that they're already enrolled in. That's a lot of uncertainty for students that are already dealing with a lot of uncertainty of having their programs cut. So I think first and foremost, ASUN needs to make sure that we're supporting those students to make sure that they are having the support that they need to be able to finish their degrees. And then second and place, making sure that any students that might be affected in the future by program cuts have a student body president who's going to represent their voice well. Making sure that if we have a Board of Regents meeting or we have hundreds of people coming and saying, please do not cut our programs, this is going to harm person after student, after faculty member, after professor, after community member, making sure that we have a student body president who isn't going to turn their back on all of those people and stand against them and support the cutting of our programs and support the cutting of those students. It's so important to make sure that students have a voice that is going to represent their voice, because overwhelmingly, students did not support those program cuts. So overwhelmingly, the student that represents those students should not have done that as well. And I think that is very, very important to make sure that we have a student representation that is not going to be supportive of things like that are going to harm so many students on this campus. So when it comes to budget cuts, making sure that students that have already been affected have the support that they need. And then second place, making sure that any that might be affected have strong leadership. And third, I do think that state legislature piece is going to be very, very important. We saw last year that we had requested a certain allocation of state budget. And
Time has run out.
Okay.
Thank you. Horizon, would you guys like a rebuttal? Okay, we will move on then. All right, our next question to Nexus. How do you plan to help the student body feel confident in campus leadership given ongoing leadership changes and their budgetary impact?
Yeah, so making sure that students, I would say, understand the changes that have taken place. I know that it was sort of all up in the air. It seems like decisions are being made and then they're being announced. We met Kathy Ankerson. We had the listening session. President Gold came and they told their students, we want to rebuild trust with you. How do we do that? We're sorry that these budget cuts took place. We lost trust in the people that made these decisions, and we're really sorry, but we want to rebuild trust with you. And then the very next day, they sent all of us students an email saying that they sided with those cuts and that they did trust those people. So I just think first and foremost, just making sure that there's accountability, that those administration, that if they want to rebuild trust, that they're doing it the right way, and making sure that ASUN is the bridge between those two things. We can't have cohesion if there is any sort of disconnect between the administration and the students, and right now there is some disconnect. A lot of students are upset with the administration for decisions that have been made, which again, not necessarily entirely their fault. So making sure that again, students understand the root of those problems so that we can repair those relationships with the administration to make sure that we can keep that relationship going and thriving in the future. That way, in the future, if there is any sort of these issues that come up again, making sure that administration is held accountable and making sure that they have pre-existing relationships with students that make sure that students are informed throughout that entire process.
Thank you. Horizon, same question to you. How do you plan to help the student body feel confident in campus leadership given ongoing leadership changes and budgetary impact?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things really is allowing students to see that they are working with their student government. I think it's very important that we have crossover and collaboration with the chancellor's office, with the dean's office, And showing students that, hey, they're here, like they're willing to talk to you, they're willing to work with ASUN. You know, I think hosting an event with you know, President Gold, like the RSO Summit, you know, that shows that, hey, President Gold is working with ASUN to reach students, all these leaders of RSOs, and wants to hear their feedback, wants to hear their voices. And I think that's one of the biggest ways to assure students. You know, I think if I was a student in an RSO and our president came back and said, yeah, I actually had a conversation with President Gold, and he, you know, listened to me and listened to our needs, and, you know, said he would get back to me, or, you know, he'd have somebody get back to me. I think that is probably one of the best things that you could hear. Oh, my president of this RSO actually talked to the president of the university, and he either reassured us of this or said that he would, you know, take a meeting with us, or listen to what we have to say. So I think that's the biggest thing, is just showing that crossover and collaboration between ASUN and the administration. Really will help students know that this administration is on their side, as well as ASUN is on their side.
Thank you. Nexus, would you like to rebuttal? All right. We will move on to our next question, and it is for our third topic, which is ASUN's use of student fees. Our first question is to Horizon. This year, ASUN requested the largest increase in student fees among all fee users. Do you think this increase is necessary? And if so, how would you maximize the increase in the budget?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, I've been on committee for fee allocations 2 terms now, once as a freshman and once as a senator member. When it comes to ASUN's budget, it's a little tricky. ASUN's had a ginormous surplus of money that they have been spending down for years now, since COVID, because they collected fees and they didn't do anything because nobody was in school. But so that reserve account is too large, outside the bounds of what university policy wants. So there comes to be a point where you spend down your budget enough that then they have to start increasing their fees to match that, to keep their budget, you know, matching, you know, price increases on your day-to-day stuff. Now, when it comes to maximizing that budget, I think that the best way to maximize a budget that ASUN has is to empower senators. One thing I've kind of advocated for is going through a budget review with the senators at the very start of the year and telling them, hey, this is what ASUN's budget is, this is where you have money to spend. If the one thing holding you back from writing a bill is the fact that you don't know if there's money there, here it is. Lay it out in front of them and show them the resources that they have to use, and just let their minds, of all the great senators that are going to be in next year, with all their creative ideas and great ideas, just let their minds run with them, and so that they know that this is the resources you have, and they know what they can make the most out of those resources. So I really think it's just allowing the senators to know what they have is going to be the best way to maximize that increased budget, really.
Nexus, the same question to you. This year, ASUN requested the largest increase in student fees among all fee users. Do you think this increase is necessary? And if so, how would you maximize the increase in the budget?
So my understanding of the increased ASUN fee, which it is the second year in which ASUN has been the largest requested increase in fee, but it's my understanding that this is to, like Kurt said, balance the budget. That is a very important task to do. We've seen with the university and with the state of Nebraska itself what happens when we don't balance that budget. We've seen what happens when we have to dip into cash reserves year after year after year, and then we're having to cut back programs, and we're having to cut back services, and we're having to impact students because we don't have a balanced budget. So yes, it is important to make sure that that balanced budget is cohesive and all of those great things, but also making sure that students understand what it is that ASUN does. I think if we're increasing the fees that students have to pay into ASUN, we need to increase the payoff that they're receiving from ASUN. So first of all, making sure that more students understand what ASUN does and what the ASUN can do for them, so that they understand the services that ASUN can provide for them, so that they're getting use out of those fees. I think it's just really important that they understand why those fees are increasing, and then also the payoff that they're receiving from that. that. So also making sure that those senators, that they're increasing those relationships that they have with RSOs and with student advisory boards, like I mentioned, to increase those relationships with students so that we're seeing an increased payoff if we're gonna be paying increased fees into ASUN. Because yes, a balanced budget is very, very important, but so is making sure that students that are paying money into something get something out of it as well. We gotta make sure that student government is serving the students and that the students know that they have a service there to use.
Thank you. Horizon, would you like a rebuttal? All right, we'll move on to our next question, which is for our fourth and final topic, which is diversity, equity, and belonging initiatives. Nexus, this question is for you first. Given the recent elimination of many programs to support students from different backgrounds on campus due to budget cuts and other national changes, how will you ensure that UNL upholds diversity, equity, and belonging initiatives?
So I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that the University of Nebraska is having to deal with policy changes that are happening federally. The federal administration is kind of taking this stance on certain identity-based things that are going on campus. So recent policy changes that we've seen with programs being taken away or services being taken away, or we saw with the changing of EM40 with the students' pronouns being taken off of Canvas and MyRed and things like that. We've kind of seen this sort of attack on students' identities and their comfortability and things like that. So I do think it's important to understand, first of all, that the university does have to comply with orders like that, but also making sure that the university is being transparent about those. So for example, like I mentioned with EM40, that was not a transparent change that was made to take down those pronouns or anything like that. So it's important to be transparent about why we're making those decisions, and that we're very, very transparent about the fact that we are still dedicated to diversity, and we are still dedicated to equity, and we are still dedicated to inclusion, and making sure that every student knows that they have a place here on this campus, regardless of federal administration and what they think that they deserve on campus or not, making sure that they have those services regardless.
Thank you. Horizon, the same question to you. Given the recent elimination of many programs to support students from different backgrounds on campus due to budget cuts and other national changes, how will you ensure that UNL upholds diversity, equity, and belonging initiatives?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing we can do, as a student region, as student government itself, is use what we have already. We have a committee, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, that works around the clock. They are probably, if not the most, they definitely are one of the most active committees in all of Senate. And it seems almost week after week they are continuing to do initiatives, whether it be, whatever month it is, you're doing monthly initiatives, weekly initiatives, doing certain days, Women's Day, whatever it may be. They're always on top of it. And really I think that the best way that we can support students right here is having a committee of students that dedicate a lot of time to DEI, and they take the time out of their day to come up with these initiatives and to plan these events and to attend these events, promote these events. I really think that we just have to empower our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee, make sure that they once again know, they have money to spend, they have the resources to do initiatives, hold events. That's really the biggest way we can support students. We use that committee of students to support students, because that's really ASUN in a nutshell. It's a bunch of students who want to support the rest of the students on campus. So I think that just using that committee in itself and continuing to empower them and let them, do the work that they are so passionate about is the best way to reach students and to support students in DEI.
Nexus, would you like a rebuttal? All right. Well, with that, we are going to move on to our open forum portion of the debate. Members of the audience were welcome to fill out a questionnaire form by scanning that QR code. And the first two people are the people that we are going to allow to come up, because we have just enough time for two. So it looks like our first question was from Ashani. Do we have Ashani here? Yeah. Come on up, Ashani. Ashani, you can just talk into that microphone. You can turn it on. Yep. And I'd like to note that IVP and EVP candidates can also help answer these questions.
I can go first? Yeah, sure. So I would like to say I think the Uber voucher program is incredible. I think it's a really great idea. I know this is something that's been kind of in the works for a while. I know there was a partnership with Hauser that was kind of proposed. There was kind of past legislation that kind of proposed this program. I think it's great. I know students are using it. I think that's wonderful. But in terms of expanding it, I think there were more uses that we can get out of the Uber voucher program. So one idea that I've heard that I would be full-heartedly interested in supporting is students with SNAP benefits, seeing about getting them Uber vouchers to grocery stores so that they can use those SNAP benefits, or victims of sexual violence, making sure that they can get Ubers to the hospital for a SANE examination if that's something that they would need. And then also in terms of thinking about international students or out-of-state students that drive to Omaha, to fly out of Omaha to go to wherever they're going home, seeing if there's some sort of Uber program that we can develop for them as well to make sure that all students can get to where they need to go safely.
Horizon?
Yeah, so as we all know, the Uber late night ride program has been a huge success. It's outspending its pace. At the current allocation for it, it would not be something that would be sustainable for 2 semesters at this rate. I for one, I like the program. You know, I sat through a lot of meetings and heard a lot about it. I think one thing we could explore is maybe the same amount of vouchers for a lesser value, so that we can make sure that that spending doesn't exceed its allocation. That's always one option. You can always go less vouchers, same amount. Or you know, you could completely pivot from the program. You could use that money for something else. You know, and that's something that you just have to decide. When you get that allocation, you know, what are we going to do with this? I like the Uber ride program. I would do everything in my power to advocate on behalf of the students and show the metric of, hey, they're spending it, they're using it. This is great for students, you know, and maybe there's more funding there for it. You know, it's not to say that the athletic fund can't maybe give more than $100,000. If students love it this much, why can't we fund it fully? Why can't we give back to students the entire amount that they have used it, so that we can keep the program as is? So there's a couple different options, and the biggest thing will be is, are you going to have enough money to sustain it for 2 semesters? If not, you either have to modify the program or you have to pivot somewhere else.
Thank you, guys.
Yep, thank you, Ashani. All right, our next person to ask a question is Troy. Do we have Troy? Come on up, Troy.
Is this on? Okay. I don't remember which one was the first. I think my first question that I asked was answered already. Could I ask the second question that I asked? Okay, perfect. Okay, so the second question that I asked is specifically for Nexus, because you mentioned this. You mentioned that you wanted the College of Law to have more representatives. The way that ASUN Senate right now is broken down is proportionately based on the students admitted in that college. And right now the College of Law has about 440 students-ish. And the College of Journalism has around 1,000 students. So to bump up the College of Law to that, like, to a second senator would devalue the apportionment in the number of senators in other colleges. So is that fair to other colleges? Or like, what is your way of getting around like the equality there?
Yeah, I totally see what you're saying, because I understand that that's based off of enrollment, making sure that there's equal representation for different colleges. So if it was a question of adding another College of Law senator might cause issues or anything like that, maybe we would think about having some sort of committee or liaison position instead, making sure that there is just increased positions to make sure that there's more people that can share that perspective. If that would cause issues with the makeup of ASUN, maybe that's something to think about and kind of avoid. I don't want to cause any problems there, of course. I want to make sure that everybody has fair and equal representation, but just making sure that there are quite a few senators or quite a few students in the College of Law, like you just mentioned. I think having only one person to represent them is a small number. And I think even 2 for the College of Journalism and Mass Communications, that's a pretty small number as well. All of the colleges that have just one member to represent them. Not a very big number, obviously. So just looking at making sure that there's more representation, even if it's not an official senator position, just making sure that there is more representation. And like I mentioned for the vet students, for example, that if we have a dentistry representative but not a vet school representative, so just making sure that everybody has that representation that they need.
Horizon, would you like to make a comment on that question? Awesome. All right, that's it for our open forum. I know we got a basketball game to watch, so now we'll wrap it up with final remarks from each of our tickets. Horizon, you have 3 minutes. You guys can go first.
Yeah, so like I've talked about up here all night, I think, well, I know Horizon has the best leaders on campus. We've shown it through the people that have worked this year with this administration in this Senate. There's, up and down the list, initiatives, bills passed by people on our ticket, but we have that freshness. We have freshmen coming in that have never been a part of ASUN before. We have people who haven't been senators before running as senators. I think it's the perfect mix, personally. I think it's proven leaders, people that have led, people that have passed bills, people that have executed bills, people that have done these things in ASUN. They can lead and show the way for some of those people who have all these great ideas and all this motivation to do them, and they can show them how to get it done correctly. As your student body president and regent candidate, it comes down to the fact that you have to support students where they're at. You have to make tangible change. That's the period end bottom line. We can sit up here and talk about this and that and the other thing and everything that's out of our control, but when it comes down to it, our job is to serve the students where they're at and make tangible change in their lives and be a good steward of their fees. And that's really all it is. Yes, we need to, and part of that is advocating on their behalf, but that's let the government liaison committee do their job. Let them continue to fostering that relationship, which this administration has done so well. Keep fostering that relationship so that it makes it easy to advocate. It makes it easy to go get a spot to testify in front of the legislator or something. But it really comes down to, students care about the things that affect them every day, and Horizon's main goal is to continue to improve every single UNL student's everyday life through that tangible change that we have shown so many times up and down this entire ticket.
Thank you very much. Nexus, you have 3 minutes for your closing statement.
Yeah, so since my first day on this campus 4 years ago, I had this desire to make something of myself, right? I came to campus, I didn't exactly feel like I belonged here, but I really, really wanted to make something of myself. I knew that there was an opportunity to meet people and to get involved with resources and to have some great opportunities, leadership experiences, all of those great things. And so in my last 4 years here, that's what I've strived to do. So I got involved with CARE and with CAST and with CAPS and with the Global Experiences Office and all of these great things because I'm really, really passionate about looking at the experiences that I've had and my hardships that I've experienced on campus and how can I make that better for students? How can I allow other students to have the incredible experience that I've had at this university and protecting that for all students on this campus. And then I think too, it's really, really important to highlight the fact that this campus needs a strong student body president. Yes, we have members in ASUN that are doing great work, and it's great to have a candidate over here who is highlighting the great work that they do. But we need a strong student body president, not just ASUN members. We need a strong student body president, and I think that I can be that strong student body president who is going to represent the student voice, and it's going to meet students where they are, and it's going to listen to students, and it's going to advocate for them. Because I'm not afraid to stand up when it comes to the interest of the students. Kurt Schneider here, when it came to the Cornhusker Clink bill, he didn't want to advocate against that. It's a disgusting thing that we're using the Cornhusker Clink name for an ICE detention facility. And he didn't want to stand against that. We need a student body president who's going to stand up against wrongdoings and is going to represent the voice of the students, and I am willing to do that. I am absolutely willing to do that, to meet students where they are, and to keep doing what I've done in my last 4 years here, to advocate for them, and to get involved, and to make sure that they can all be successful on campus the way that I've gotten the opportunity to be successful on campus. Because every student deserves that. Whether or not they're in a program that this university deems is successful enough or not, they deserve an opportunity to be on this campus and to thrive and to have access to the resources that we have on this campus that I've gotten to benefit from. Every single student deserves that opportunity. Every student and every interaction matters.
Thank you. All right, that concludes our 2026 ASUN Executive Candidate Debate. Thank you so much for joining the Daily Nebraskan and our candidates this evening. Voting for ASUN election opens on MyRed on March 31st and April 1st. Stay tuned with the Daily Nebraskan for more ASUN and event coverage. Thank you all, and have a great night. Go watch some basketball.